The mail sat on Ruth Morrison's kitchen table for 3 hours before she could bring herself to open it. Certified. Return receipt requested. From Mitchell and Associates Real Estate Development. Her hands shook as she stared at the envelope. She was 20 years old, had cleaned office buildings for 6 years since dropping out of college, and in all that time, she'd never received mail from a law firm. Nothing good came in envelopes like this. Outside her studio apartment window, Newark's Third Ward hummed with evening traffic. Sirens wailed in the distance. Music thumped from a passing car. The radiator clanked and hissed, struggling against February cold that seeped through the single-pane windows. Ruth pulled her sweater tighter, the same threadbare sweater she'd worn for 3 winters, and stared at the envelope. It had been 6 months since she'd last seen him. 6 months since the morning she found Marcus Webb, CEO of Webb Industries, unconscious in the executive bathroom of the Northgate Tower. 6 months since everything changed. But to understand what that envelope meant, we need to go back. Back to when Ruth Morrison first learned that saving someone's life doesn't always look like emergency rooms and ambulances. Sometimes it looks like orange juice and sugar packets at 4 in the morning. 10 months earlier, Ruth started her shift at Northgate Tower at 4 a.m., same as she had for 3 years. 5th floor to penthouse. Empty offices. Quiet halls. Just her, the vacuum, and the city waking up beyond the glass. She was 27. This wasn't the life she'd planned. 3 years ago, she'd been a junior at Rutgers University, pre-med, full scholarship. Her professors said she had what it took. Her organic chemistry professor told her she'd make an excellent surgeon. She believed them. She believed herself. Then her mother got sick. Cancer. Stage 4. The diagnosis came on a Tuesday afternoon, and by Friday, Ruth had withdrawn from school. Someone had to take care of her younger brother. Someone had to pay the medical bills the insurance wouldn't cover. Someone had to keep the lights on and food on the table while her mother underwent chemotherapy that would ultimately fail. Ruth took the first job she could find, a cleaning company that serviced office buildings downtown. She promised herself it was temporary, just until her mother recovered, just until things stabilized. 3 years later, her mother was gone. Her brother was 16, still in high school, and Ruth was still pushing a cleaning cart through executive suites at 4 in the morning, wondering where her life had gone, wondering if she'd ever get it back. The executive bathroom light was on when she reached the penthouse floor. Unusual. The floor didn't open until 8. Ruth knocked. Maintenance. Anyone in there? No answer. She used her master key and pushed the door open. Marcus Webb lay crumpled against the marble sink, his expensive suit wrinkled, his face pale and clammy. He wasn't drunk. Ruth had seen enough drunks in her 3 years of cleaning to know the difference. This was something else. Something worse. His breathing was shallow. His skin felt cold when she touched his wrist to check for a pulse. Ruth's first instinct was to call security. Rich white man passed out in a bathroom. This was above her pay grade. Way above. She reached for her radio, finger hovering over the call button. Then she saw his hand, trembling, gripping a pill bottle. Empty. Ruth picked up the bottle. Insulin. Diabetic shock. Her mother had developed diabetes during chemotherapy. Ruth knew the signs. Knew that without intervention, Marcus Webb had minutes, maybe less. The protocol was clear. Call security. Call 911. Do not touch. Do not engage. Liability. Lawsuit. Not your problem. But protocol didn't account for the fact that 911 response time in this neighborhood was 18 minutes on a good day. Didn't account for the fact that security was 2 floors down, and Jerry was probably on his 3rd smoke break of the morning. Didn't account for the fact that a human being was dying on this cold marble floor. Ruth made a choice. She ran to the break room, grabbed the orange juice she'd brought for her own breakfast, dumped half the sugar packets from the supply cabinet into her pocket, and ran back. Her heart hammered. Her hand shook, but her mother's voice echoed in her head. When someone needs help, baby, you help. That's all there is to it. Ruth tilted Marcus's head back, poured juice into his mouth slowly, praying he wouldn't choke. She mixed sugar on his tongue, massaging his throat to encourage swallowing. Come on, she whispered. Come on, stay with me. His eyes fluttered. That's it. Swallow. Breathe. It took 4 minutes. 4 minutes of Ruth holding the stranger's head, monitoring his breathing, alternating between juice and sugar, praying she wasn't making it worse. 4 minutes of her entire career, her entire future, balanced on whether this man lived or died. His eyes opened, struggled to focus, found her face. You're okay, Ruth said softly, relief flooding through her. Your blood sugar dropped. You're gonna be fine. I'm calling an ambulance now. His hand caught her wrist. Weak grip, but deliberate. No. His voice was hoarse, barely audible. No ambulance. Please. Sir, you need medical attention. No hospitals. Please. He tried to sit up, failed, slumped back against the sink. I can't board meeting merger. If they know I'm sick. Ruth understood. Not the corporate details. She didn't know anything about mergers or board meetings. But she understood desperation. The fear of losing everything because your body betrayed you. She'd watched her mother fight that same fear for 18 months. Can you stand? Together, they got him to the leather couch in his office. Ruth brought more juice, crackers from her lunch bag. She sat with him, monitoring him, watching color slowly return to his face. 20 minutes passed before he spoke again. I'm Marcus, he said. I know. I clean your office. He looked at her then, really looked for the first time. Most executives looked through people like Ruth. Invisible hands that emptied trash and vacuumed carpets. But Marcus Webb saw her. What's your name? Ruth. Ruth Morrison. Ruth. He exhaled slowly, steadying himself. You saved my life. You need to see a doctor. Get your medication adjusted. I will. But his eyes said otherwise. How did you know what to do? My mother. She had diabetes. Had. She passed. 2 years ago. Silence settled between them. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city turned gold with sunrise. Newark waking up, unaware that in this office, something had shifted. Something had begun. Marcus sat up slowly, running a hand through his hair. I've been managing this poorly. The stress, the merger, I've been skipping doses, not eating right. He looked at her. Today was my fault. Ruth started to stand. I should finish my shift. Wait. Marcus's voice stopped her. Why did you help me? You could have just called security, covered yourself. But you didn't. Ruth met his eyes. She thought about her mother, about all the people who'd looked away when they needed help, about all the times she'd wished someone, anyone, would just see them. Because you needed help, she said simply. That's all. Something shifted in Marcus Webb's face. Gratitude, yes, but also shame. Recognition of a kindness he didn't deserve and couldn't repay. Recognition that he'd built an empire but forgotten how to see people. Thank you, he said quietly. Truly. Ruth nodded and left. That should have been the end of it. A one-time emergency. A good deed done. Ships passing in the night. But the next morning, there was coffee on her cleaning cart when she arrived. Good coffee. Still hot. A note in elegant handwriting. Thank you. M. The morning after that, a bagel with cream cheese. Another note. Ate breakfast today. You were right. M. Third morning, nothing. Ruth felt strangely disappointed as she pushed her cart past the executive offices, wondering if whatever brief connection they'd had was already over. Then she saw him. Marcus Webb, CEO of Webb Industries, standing by the elevator bank at 4:30 in the morning, holding 2 coffee cups. I hope I didn't overstep, he said. I don't know how you take it, so I brought sugar and cream. They talked for 15 minutes that morning. 20 the next. An hour by the end of the week. Ruth learned that Marcus was 42, divorced, no kids. He'd built his company from nothing, started in a garage 15 years ago, took it public, grew it into an empire. But the empire was eating him alive. The merger was hostile. The board wanted him out. Half his executives were positioning to replace him. He was working 90-hour weeks, sleeping in his office 3 nights a week, forgetting to eat, running himself into the ground. Marcus learned that Ruth was 27, that she dropped out of Rutgers, pre-med to care for her dying mother, that she supported her 16-year-old brother now, working 2 jobs, cleaning at night and weekend shifts at a restaurant, to keep him in a good school district, that she lived in a studio apartment because it was all she could afford. Her brother slept on the couch. She took the floor most nights so he could have the bed. "You were pre-med?" Marcus asked one morning, genuine surprise in his voice. Ruth's voice went flat the way it always did when she talked about her old life. That was someone else's life. You could go back. With what money? What time? She shook her head. That dream died with my mother. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Dreams don't die, Ruth. They just wait." Ruth didn't respond. She'd learned not to hope for things that couldn't happen. Hope was dangerous. Hope hurt. They were, on paper, from completely different worlds. Marcus Webb, CEO. Millionaire. Penthouse apartment. Ivy League education. Country club membership. Board meetings and business dinners and first-class flights. Ruth Morrison, housekeeper. 2 jobs. Studio apartment in the 3rd ward. Dropped out of college. Bus passes and ramen noodles and second-hand clothes. But at 4:30 in the morning, in an empty building with the city sleeping below them, they were just 2 people who'd seen each other's humanity. 2 people who understood what it meant to be drowning, to be invisible, to need saving. 6 weeks later, Marcus collapsed again. Ruth found him in his office at 5:15 in the morning, unconscious on the floor behind his desk. This time she didn't hesitate. She called 911 immediately, rode with him in the ambulance, waited through the 6-hour hospital stay, ignoring the confused looks from nurses who couldn't understand why a cleaning woman was listed as his emergency contact. The diagnosis was worse than blood sugar. Stress-induced cardiac event. Minor, the doctor said. A warning shot. But without major changes, without reducing stress, without taking care of himself, Marcus Webb was looking at a major heart attack within months, possibly weeks. The merger was in 3 weeks. Marcus was discharged at 11 p.m. Ruth called him a car, made sure the driver knew his address, watched until the taillights disappeared into Newark traffic. At 3 in the morning, her phone rang. "I can't do this anymore." Marcus's voice was hollow, empty. The company, the merger, the pressure. "I'm going to die for a business that doesn't even want me." "So stop," Ruth said. "I can't. If I walk away, I lose everything. The board will force me out. I'll lose my shares, my reputation, everything I've built for 15 years. But you'll be alive." Silence on the other end. "Marcus." Ruth sat up in bed, her brother sleeping soundly on the couch across the room. "What's the point of building an empire if you're not here to see it?" More silence. She could hear him breathing, could hear the weight of everything crushing down on him. "I'm going to lose my house," Marcus said finally. "The penthouse. My car. Everything." "Then lose it," Ruth said gently. "You can't take it with you anyway." She heard him exhale, heard something break in that breath. "You're 27 years old, and you've already lost everything that mattered," Marcus said quietly. "Your education, your mother, your future. And you're still here, still fighting, still showing up at 4 a.m. with a smile." "I don't smile that much." "You do, when you talk about your brother, when you talk about what your mother taught you." He paused. "You lost everything, Ruth, and you're still kind. I'm losing a company, and I'm acting like it's the end of the world." It feels like the end of your world, Ruth said. That's valid. That's real. But you're right. I'll be alive. That's more than. His voice broke. That's more than I deserve after how I've been living. 2 weeks later, Marcus resigned. The board was shocked. The business press called it a breakdown, called him weak, said he couldn't handle the pressure. His ex-wife called it pathetic. But Marcus felt lighter than he had in years. He moved out of his penthouse into a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Ruth's neighborhood, the 3rd Ward, a place he'd driven through 1,000 times, but never really seen. He started sleeping actual nights, eating regular meals, walking in the mornings, taking his medication on schedule. Ruth checked on him, brought groceries when she could afford extra, a bag of rice here, some vegetables there, made sure he was taking his pills, made sure he wasn't alone. "I'm basically homeless," Marcus joked one evening, sitting in his unfurnished apartment on a folding chair he'd bought at Target. CEO to this. "You're not homeless. You have a home." "Barely." He gestured around the empty space. "I spent 15 years building wealth, and I have nothing to show for it but high blood pressure and a folding chair." Ruth sat on the floor beside him. "You have your life. That's not nothing." Marcus turned to look at her, really look at her. This 27-year-old woman who'd saved him twice now. Once with orange juice, once with truth. "You should be in medical school right now," he said. "You should be building your future, not cleaning up after people like me. People like you. People who waste their potential, who build empires and forget what matters." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Ruth, you saved me. Twice. Once in that bathroom, once on the phone that night. And you keep saving me every day just by showing me what real strength looks like." Ruth looked away. "I'm just surviving." "No." His voice was firm. "You're thriving under impossible circumstances. You're raising your brother, working 2 jobs, and you're still the kindest person I've ever met. That's not survival. That's grace." Ruth felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back. "I promise you something," Marcus said. "When I recover, when I build something new, something that doesn't kill me, I'm going to build you a home. A real one. Not a studio where your brother sleeps on the couch. A home. And I'm going to help you get back to medical school. I don't know how yet, but I will." Ruth laughed, but her eyes filled anyway. "Marcus, I'm serious. You gave me my life back. I'm going to give you your future back. I promise." Ruth saw he meant it. Saw it in his eyes, in the set of his jaw. This man who'd lost everything was making her a promise he had no way to keep. "Okay," she said. "When you recover." They shook hands like it was a business deal. Like promises made in unfurnished apartments by people with nothing meant something. 5 months later, Marcus started a new company. Smaller. Sustainable housing development. He worked reasonable hours. 40, maybe 50 hours a week. He ate 3 meals a day. Managed his health. Saw his doctor regularly. Ruth kept cleaning buildings. Kept checking on him. They had coffee every Sunday morning at the diner on the corner. Their ritual. Then Ruth's brother got sick. Not a cold. Not the flu. Meningitis. Bacterial. Life-threatening. The hospital bills came immediately. Even with insurance, the bare minimum insurance Ruth's cleaning company provided, the costs were staggering. ICU. Specialists. Experimental treatment when the standard protocol didn't work fast enough. Ruth didn't tell Marcus. Didn't tell anyone. Just picked up a 3rd job, doing overnight inventory at a warehouse. Applied for every loan she could find. Maxed out the 2 credit cards she'd sworn never to use. She stopped sleeping. 18-hour days became normal. Work from 4 a.m. to noon. Warehouse from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. Restaurant from 7 p.m. to midnight. 2 hours to visit her brother in the hospital. Repeat. Marcus noticed she looked exhausted during their Sunday coffee. "I'm fine," she lied. 2 weeks later, Ruth's landlord gave her notice. Building sold. New owner evicting everyone for luxury renovations. 60 days to find somewhere else to live. Ruth was losing her brother and her home simultaneously. The universe had decided she hadn't suffered enough. She still didn't tell Marcus. Pride, shame, fear, all of it. How do you tell someone who promised to help you that you're drowning? How do you admit you can't do it all? 6 months after the promise, her brother stabilized, survived, came home from the hospital on a Tuesday afternoon, weak but alive. The debt was crushing. $180,000. Ruth would be paying it off for the rest of her life. The eviction deadline hit. Ruth moved what little she had into a week-to-week motel on the edge of town, the kind with hourly rates and flickering neon signs. Her brother stayed with a friend's family temporarily while he recovered. She stopped going to Sunday coffee, stopped answering Marcus's calls. She was ashamed. Ashamed she couldn't fix this. Ashamed she'd let someone make her a promise she'd foolishly believed in. She was 28 years old, drowning in medical debt, essentially homeless, and further from medical school than ever. Then the mail came. Certified. Return receipt requested. Mitchell and Associates Real Estate Development. Ruth stared at it for 3 hours in that motel room. 3 hours of fear and hope and the terrible suspicion that opening this envelope would change everything. Finally, she opened it. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Legal letterhead. Heavy stock. Deed transfer notice. Property. 447 Woodland Avenue, Newark, New Jersey. Transferred from Marcus Webb. Transferred to Ruth Morrison. Effective immediately. Ruth's hand shook so badly, she almost dropped the paper. Attached to the deed was a handwritten note on plain white paper. Marcus's handwriting. Ruth, I'm sorry it took 6 months. I wanted to do this right. 447 Woodland is yours. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, paid in full. No mortgage. No rent. Yours. Your brother has a real bedroom now. So do you. But that's not all. I know about your brother. I know about the medical bills. I know about the eviction. I know you've been killing yourself working 3 jobs, and you still didn't ask me for help. That ends now. I need to tell you something, and I need to do it in person. There's more. So much more. Please, let me show you. I kept my promise. Now let me keep the one I didn't know I was making. You told me dreams don't die. They wait. Yours has waited long enough. Marcus. At the bottom of the note, an address Ruth didn't recognize. A time. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. Ruth sat in that motel room, holding a deed to a house she'd never seen, from a man she'd saved twice, who'd just saved her. But the note said there was more. What more could there possibly be? She thought about the medical bills, the debt collectors who called 15 times a day, the 3 jobs she was working, the motel room with its thin walls and suspicious stains, the way she'd given up on medical school, on her future, on everything except basic survival. What could Marcus possibly do about any of that? Outside, Newark hummed with evening traffic. Inside, Ruth Morrison, 20 years old, exhausted, drowning, held her future in her hands and wondered what tomorrow would bring. She had no idea that Marcus had spent 6 months building not just a house, but a revolution. Tomorrow, she'd see exactly how far one promise could reach. Tomorrow, she'd learn that the man she'd saved had been planning something that would change not just her life, but hundreds of lives. Tomorrow, everything would change. Ruth took the bus. She couldn't afford an Uber, and her car had died 3 months ago. So she took the number 14 bus, holding the deed in her lap like it might disappear if she let go. The address Marcus had given her was in an industrial area on the edge of Newark's ironbound district. Ruth had cleaned buildings there years ago. Warehouses mostly. Distribution centers. Not exactly residential. The bus dropped her at a corner she didn't recognize. Ruth walked 3 blocks, checking the address again. 447 Woodland Avenue. She stopped. This couldn't be right. In front of her stood a massive construction site enclosed by a security fence. Bulldozers, concrete mixers, stacks of lumber under tarps. But no houses. Just dirt and machinery and half-built structures that could have been anything. Ruth was about to pull out her phone when she saw the sign. 20 feet tall. Professional. Mounted on the fence facing the street. Morrison Village, Phase 1 construction. Webb Development Group. Her name on a billboard. Her last name on a construction site with 47 wooden frames rising from the ground like skeletons waiting for flesh. Ruth's knees went weak. A security guard approached from a small booth near the gate. Young guy, maybe mid-20s, wearing a high-visibility vest. "Ms. Morrison," he asked. Ruth couldn't speak, just nodded. "Mr. Webb is expecting you. He's in the site office." The guard gestured toward a trailer at the far end of the lot. "He said to tell you the house is ready whenever you want to see it." "The house." "Your house, ma'am. 447 Woodland. It's the only one that's finished." He pointed to a structure set apart from the others, closer to the street. He wanted to make sure it was perfect before you saw it. Ruth followed his finger. There, separate from the construction site, stood a complete house. 3 stories. Brick facade. Black shutters. A front porch with a swing. A maple tree in the yard. It looked like something from a dream. Like something a little girl might draw when asked what home looked like. "What is this?" Ruth whispered. The guard smiled. "I think Mr. Webb wants to tell you himself." Marcus was standing outside the site office when Ruth approached. He looked different than the last time she'd seen him. Healthier. He'd gained some weight. The good kind. The kind that comes from eating regular meals instead of surviving on coffee and stress. He wore jeans and a work shirt instead of a suit. His hair was a little longer. He looked like someone who'd learned how to sleep. But when he saw Ruth, his expression shifted into something fragile. Nervous. Like he was the one who'd been given a gift too big to hold. "Ruth." He said her name like a prayer. "You came. What is this, Marcus?" He gestured toward the trailer. "Come inside. I want to show you something." The site office was exactly what you'd expect. Metal desk, filing cabinets, coffee maker, hard hats hanging on hooks. But covering every surface were architectural drawings, blueprints, scale models of houses. Marcus pulled out a portfolio and opened it on the desk. 47 homes, he said. That's the full build-out. 47 affordable homes for working families. Income-based pricing. Nobody pays more than 30% of their income. 12 homes reserved specifically for healthcare workers going back to school. He looked at her. People like you should have been. Ruth stared at the drawings. Each house had a number. Each one showed floor plans, elevations, landscaping. 447 Woodland is yours, Marcus continued. It's finished. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, fully furnished. Your brother's bedroom has his name on the door. I remembered you said he liked blue, so I... He trailed off, suddenly self-conscious. I wanted him to know it was his space. Ruth's vision blurred. She blinked hard. But that's not all. Marcus pulled out another folder. There's a community center, childcare facility, medical clinic offering free basic care. And I've partnered with Rutgers. They're creating a pipeline program for people in this community who want to go back to school for healthcare degrees. He pulled out a third envelope. Formal letterhead. Rutgers University School of Medicine. This is a full scholarship to Rutgers Medical School. Tuition, fees, books, everything. Plus a stipend for living expenses while you study. For years. Fully funded. Ruth's hands trembled as she took the envelope. And this. Marcus pulled out a 4th document. Your brother's private school tuition. Paid through graduation. Marcus, I can't. And this. A 5th document. Bank letterhead. Medical debt. $180,000. Paid in full this morning. Ruth's legs gave out. She sat down hard in the metal folding chair, the papers scattering across the desk. Why? Her voice broke. Why would you do all this? Marcus knelt in front of her, bringing himself to eye level. Because 6 months ago, you saved my life. Twice. You gave me orange juice when I was dying. You told me to walk away from a company that was killing me. You showed me what actually matters. He paused. You didn't just give me medical care, Ruth. You gave me a reason to live right, and I promised I'd give you your future back. But this is too much. A house, medical school, the debt. You worked 3 jobs while your brother was dying. Marcus said quietly. You got evicted. You lived in a motel room and never once asked me for help. When I found out... Wait. Ruth looked up. How did you know? About my brother, the debt, the eviction? Marcus had the grace to look uncomfortable. I hired someone to check on you. I wasn't trying to invade your privacy. After you stopped answering my calls, I got worried. And when I found out what you were going through, and that you didn't call me... His voice broke. I knew I had to do more than just build you a house. Ruth stood, papers still clutched in her hands. She walked to the window, looking out at the construction site. 47 wooden frames. 47 families. There's one more thing, Marcus said behind her, and I need you to come with me. Right now. Marcus drove her to a building 3 blocks from the construction site. It was complete. Finished. A modern 2-story structure with floor-to-ceiling windows and accessible ramps. The sign above the entrance made Ruth's breath catch. The Morrison Family Wellness Center. They walked inside. The lobby was bright, clean, welcoming. And there, on the wall facing the entrance, was a photograph. 8 by 10, professionally framed. Ruth's mother. Beneath it, a quote engraved on a bronze plaque. We may not have much, but we share what we have. Dorothy Morrison. Ruth's knees buckled again. Marcus caught her arm, steadied her. She taught me that. Ruth whispered. That was her. That was what she always said. I know. Marcus's voice was gentle. You told me. That first week we had coffee. You told me what she believed. That kindness isn't about what you have. It's about what you're willing to give. They walked through the building. Medical clinic on the first floor, exam rooms, small pharmacy, waiting area with toys for kids. Upstairs, childcare facility with bright colors and soft carpets. Community kitchen. Job training center with computers and workstations. 15 staff positions, Marcus said. All filled by people from this neighborhood. People who understand what it's like to need help. He handed her another folder. This is the staff directory. There's one position that's still open. He paused. Medical director. It's waiting for you. After medical school. Ruth turned to look at him. But that's separate from this. Marcus pulled out one more document. Official offer letter. This is immediate. Community outreach director. $85,000 a year. 20 hours a week, so you can attend medical school. You'd help design programs, hire staff, make sure we're actually helping people and not just throwing money at problems. Marcus. This is separate from everything else, he said quickly. Separate from us, from our friendship, from anything personal. You earned this. This community needs someone who understands them, someone who's lived it. Ruth looked at the offer letter, looked at the building around her, looked at her mother's photograph on the wall. If I take this... She spoke carefully. I need control. Real control. Not token representation. It's yours. I'm just the funding. And if... Ruth forced herself to say it. If things don't work out between us personally, then you keep the house. Keep the job. Keep the scholarship. Everything. Marcus pulled out another document. Legal protections. All of it in writing. Separate trusts. Nothing can be taken back. Not by me, not by anyone. Why are you doing this? Ruth asked again. Really? All of it? Why? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw. Because for 6 months, I've had everything I thought I wanted. Money, success, purpose, and I was still empty. Because the one person who saw me when I was nothing, who saved me when I was dying, who taught me what actually matters, I couldn't find her, couldn't thank her, couldn't tell her that she changed everything. He stepped closer, and because I'm falling in love with you, Ruth, have been since those 4:30 a.m. conversations, since you told me dreams don't die, they wait, since you showed me what strength actually looks like. He paused, and I need you to know that even if you don't feel the same, even if you never do, you deserve this future. You earned it, not because you saved me, because of who you are. Ruth couldn't speak, couldn't process. 47 houses, a medical school scholarship, a job, her debt erased, her future returned, her mother honored, and now this. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Don't say anything yet. Marcus handed her a set of keys. Go see your house. Move in. Get settled. Think about everything. And when you're ready to talk, I'll be here. Ruth stood in the doorway of 447 Woodland Avenue and tried to remember how to breathe. The house was perfect. Not perfect like magazine perfect. Perfect like someone had paid attention. Perfect like someone had listened to every offhand comment she'd made during those early morning conversations and built a home around them. The living room faced east. She'd mentioned once that she loved watching the sunrise. Floor-to-ceiling windows caught the morning light. The kitchen was small but functional. White cabinets, black countertops, the kind of simple design that wouldn't go out of style. The refrigerator was fully stocked. Healthy food, fresh vegetables, her brother's favorite snacks on the middle shelf where he could reach them. Ruth climbed the stairs. Her brother's room was on the second floor. His name, David, on the door in brushed metal letters. Inside, a full-size bed with navy blue sheets, exactly like he'd mentioned wanting. A desk with a lamp and school supplies already organized. Books on the shelf, science textbooks, novels, everything a 16-year-old might need. On the wall, a framed photograph of him and Ruth from 2 years ago, before everything fell apart. Marcus had thought of everything. Ruth's room was at the end of the hall, larger than David's. A queen bed with a simple gray comforter, a dresser, a reading chair by the window that faced east, that would catch sunrise every morning. She sat on the bed and let herself cry. Every detail, the sunrise-facing windows, the blue sheets for David, the stocked refrigerator with healthy food she could never afford, the photograph on David's wall, the reading chair by her window. Marcus had been paying attention to everything she said for months, while she was cleaning his office, while they were having coffee, while she was drowning in debt and shame and fear. He'd been building this. Ruth stood and walked through the house again, touched the countertops, the walls, the furniture, opened closets and found towels, linens, everything a home needed. In the kitchen, she found a note taped to the refrigerator. Marcus's handwriting. The utilities are paid for the first year. After that, they're income-based through the village trust. You'll never pay more than you can afford. The house is yours. Fully. The deed is in your name. No mortgage. No strings. Welcome home. M. Ruth slid down the refrigerator door and sat on the kitchen floor, holding the note, crying so hard she couldn't breathe. What if she wasn't enough? What if she failed medical school? What if 4 years from now, she couldn't cut it, couldn't handle the workload, couldn't be the doctor everyone thought she could be? What if Marcus realized she was just a housekeeper who got lucky? What if this was all pity, not love? Ruth pulled out her phone, looked at her mother's contact, still saved even though the number had been disconnected for 2 years. Mama, she whispered to the empty kitchen. What do I do? And she heard her mother's voice, as clear as if Ruth Morrison were sitting right there on the kitchen floor beside her. When someone offers you love, baby, you don't ask why. You say thank you. Ruth wiped her eyes, pulled herself up, made a decision. She texted Marcus, can we talk? Tonight? His response was immediate. Anything. Anywhere. Ruth looked around the kitchen, in her house, the home Marcus had built for her. My house, she typed. Our house. 7 p.m. Marcus arrived at 6:55 with takeout. Chinese food. Vegetable lo mein, spring rolls, steamed dumplings. Her favorite. He'd remembered from a conversation 4 months ago when she'd mentioned she used to get Chinese with her mother every Friday. I didn't know if you'd have groceries yet, he said, holding up the bag. Ruth smiled despite her nerves. The refrigerator is fully stocked. But thank you. They ate at the kitchen table, a solid oak table that seated 6, far too big for just her and David, but perfect for a family that might grow. They ate in comfortable silence, the kind that only exists between people who've seen each other at their worst. Ruth kept looking at him, trying to find words for what she needed to say. Finally, she set down her chopsticks. I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen without interrupting. Marcus nodded. For 6 months, I've been drowning. Ruth's voice was steady, but her hand shook. Working 3 jobs. Watching my brother almost die. Losing our apartment. And I didn't call you. Do you know why? Marcus shook his head. Because I was ashamed. Ashamed that I couldn't fix it. Ashamed that I'd let you make me a promise I knew you couldn't keep. Ashamed that I was still just me. A housekeeper who dropped out of school. Someone who saves people but can't save herself. She gestured around the kitchen, at the house, at everything. And then this. The scholarship. The job. The debt paid. And I don't. Her voice broke. I don't know how to accept this. Because I didn't do anything to deserve it. I gave you orange juice, Marcus. I talked to you at 4:30 in the morning. That's not worth $180,000 in medical debt. It's not worth 47 houses. Marcus started to speak, but Ruth held up her hand. Let me finish. She took a breath. I'm terrified that if I say yes to you, I'm saying yes because of what you gave me. And I need to know that if you took all of this away tomorrow, the house, the scholarship, everything, I'd still want you. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice gentle. You're right. What you did isn't worth 47 houses. Ruth felt her heart crack. What you did is worth so much more than I could ever repay. Marcus leaned forward. Because you didn't give me orange juice. You gave me a reason to believe I was worth saving. You saw me, not my title, not my money, not my success. You saw me, a broken man dying on a bathroom floor, and you decided I mattered. He stood, moved his chair closer to hers. I was a CEO who couldn't take care of himself, who was killing himself for a company that didn't care if I lived or died. And you, his voice broke. You told me to walk away, to choose life over success. Do you know how rare that is? Do you know how many people would have told me to fight harder, work more, prove myself? Marcus, I built you a house. I'm paying for medical school. I erased your debt. But Ruth, I'm not doing this because I owe you. I'm doing this because for 6 months, every decision I made, every building I designed, every program I funded, I asked myself, would Ruth be proud of this? Would this honor what she taught me? He took her hand. You were my compass, my North Star, the voice in my head reminding me what actually matters. And somewhere in those 4:30 a.m. conversations, I fell in love with you, with your strength, your kindness, the way you see people, the way you saw me when I was nothing. Ruth felt tears sliding down her face. So I'm not asking you to love me back. Marcus continued. I'm not asking you for anything. I just need you to know that everything I built thinking of you. And if you need time to figure out what you feel, I'll wait. If you need space, I'll give it. If you decide you don't want this, don't want me, I'll support you from a distance. Ruth wiped her eyes. I'm terrified. Of what? Of this. Of you. Of feeling like I'm choosing you because of what you gave me instead of who you are. Marcus nodded slowly. Then let's find out. What do you mean? Give me 2 weeks. Don't see me. Don't talk to me. Move into your house. Start planning for medical school. Live your life. Process everything. And if in 2 weeks you still want me, I'll be waiting. He squeezed her hand. And if you don't, I'll still be your biggest supporter. From a distance. But everything else, the house, the scholarship, the job, all of it stands. That's not conditional on us. You'd really do that? Ruth, I've waited 10 months to keep this promise. I can wait 2 more weeks to know if you love me. They sat there, hands joined, 2 people who'd saved each other, trying to figure out if saving someone was the same as loving them. Okay, Ruth said finally. 2 weeks. They shook hands like they had 6 months ago. Like promises made across kitchen tables meant something. Marcus stood to leave. At the door, he turned back. For what it's worth, he said, I already know my answer. I've known since 4:30 a.m. when you told me dreams don't die. I love you, Ruth Morrison. I'll love you in 2 weeks. I'll love you in 2 years. I'll love you whether you choose me or not. Then he left. Ruth stood in her kitchen in her house, and cried. 14 days. That's all she had to figure out if she loved the man, or just loved what he'd given her. Day 1, Ruth moved her brother into the house. David stood in the doorway of 447 Woodland Avenue, backpack slung over one shoulder, staring at the 3-story brick home like it might vanish if he blinked. This is ours. His voice cracked. He was 16, trying to sound cool, but his eyes were wet. This is ours, Ruth confirmed. David dropped his backpack and ran upstairs. Ruth heard him open the door to his room, heard the exact moment he saw his name on the door, saw the navy blue sheets, saw the desk and the books and the photograph on the wall. Ruth, he yelled. Ruth, come see this. They spent 3 days settling in, unpacking the few boxes they had, buying things they'd never been able to afford, throw pillows, picture frames, a coffee maker that didn't leak. David claimed the reading chair in the living room. Ruth claimed the kitchen table where morning light pooled like liquid gold. Ruth missed Marcus every single day, reached for her phone a dozen times to text him, stopped herself every time. 2 weeks. She'd promised. Day 4, Ruth had her meeting at Rutgers. The admissions office was exactly as she remembered from 6 years ago. Same waiting room. Same motivational posters about pursuing dreams. Same smell of coffee and anxiety. But Ruth Morrison wasn't the same. 6 years ago, she'd sat in this building and withdrawn from school, signed the papers that ended her future, walked out believing she'd never come back. Now she was here to begin again. The advisor, Dr. Patricia Chun, Associate Dean of Admissions, reviewed Ruth's file with practiced efficiency. Your pre-med coursework was excellent. 3.8 GPA. Strong recommendations from your professors. She looked up. You'll need to retake some science courses. They're outdated now. But you're a strong candidate. I'll be working part-time while I study, Ruth said. 20 hours a week. Medical school is demanding. Are you sure you can manage both? Ruth thought about 3 jobs. Thought about 18-hour days. Thought about cleaning office buildings at 4 a.m. and falling asleep standing up at restaurant shifts. Yes, she said. For the first time in years, yes. I can manage. Dr. Chin smiled. Then welcome back, Ms. Morrison. Classes start in August. Days 8 through 10. Ruth started at the Morrison Family Wellness Center. Her first day, she arrived at 7 a.m. and found 15 staff members waiting in the conference room. 15 people who'd trusted her before they'd even met her. 15 people from Newark's 3rd Ward, from neighborhoods like the one she'd grown up in. I'm Ruth Morrison, she said, suddenly nervous. And I don't have all the answers. I don't have a master's degree in social work or nonprofit management. What I have is experience being on the other side of services like these. Experience needing help and not knowing where to find it. A woman in the back raised her hand. Teresa, 52, former teacher, hired as the education coordinator. What's the mission here? Really? Ruth thought about her mother, about Marcus on the bathroom floor, about Maya with her crayon drawing. To see people, Ruth said. That's it. To actually see people when everyone else looks away. And then to help them see themselves, see their potential, their worth, their future. Teresa nodded. I can work with that. They spent 3 days designing programs, mapping out childcare schedules, medical clinic hours, job training curricula. Ruth met with families who'd been selected for Morrison Village housing, families who'd been living in shelters, in cars, in condemned buildings, in motels charging by the week. One woman, Jasmine, 34, 2 kids, escaping domestic violence, sat across from Ruth in the intake office and cried. Why are you doing this? Jasmine asked. Why are you helping us? Ruth reached across the desk, took Jasmine's hand. Because someone helped me when I needed it, and now I get to help you. That's how it works. This is going to change our lives, Jasmine whispered. Ruth felt it then, the full weight of what Marcus had built. This wasn't just about her. It had never been just about her. He created a system, a movement, a way to help hundreds of people. And he'd done it thinking of her. Days 11 through 13, Ruth couldn't stop thinking about Marcus. Not about the house, not about the scholarship, not about the paid medical debt. About him, about the way he'd looked when he told her he loved her, about his terrible proposal timing, about how he remembered she liked vegetable lo mein, about how he'd spent 6 months building something beautiful instead of demanding gratitude. She drove past his apartment on day 12, didn't stop, just slowed down, looked at the windows, wondered if he was thinking about her too. She realized something sitting in her car outside his building. She wasn't thinking about what he'd given her. She was thinking about who he was, about his kindness, about the way he listened, about how he'd chosen life over empire because she'd told him to. She was thinking about 4:30 a.m. conversations, about coffee and bagels, about the way he'd said her name like it mattered. She was thinking about love. Day 14, Ruth woke up knowing. She texted Marcus before she'd even gotten out of bed. Can you meet me? Today. His response was immediate. Where? Ruth smiled. Of course he was awake. Of course he'd been waiting. Northgate Tower, she typed. Executive bathroom. 4:30 a.m. tomorrow. A pause. Then I'll be there. Ruth arrived at Northgate Tower at 4:15 a.m., 15 minutes early, heart hammering against her ribs. The building security guard, new guy, didn't recognize her. Looked up from his desk with mild suspicion. Can I help you? I'm Ruth Morrison. I used to work here. Ms. Morrison? His expression shifted. You don't work here anymore. I know. I'm meeting someone. He waved her through. Ruth took the elevator to the executive floor, muscle memory guiding her to the penthouse level where she'd spent 3 years cleaning, where she'd found Marcus Webb dying on a bathroom floor, where everything had started. She stood outside the executive bathroom and waited. At exactly 4:30 a.m., the elevator doors opened. Marcus stepped out. He looked the same as he had 2 weeks ago. Jeans, simple shirt, hair slightly too long. But his eyes looked like he hadn't slept in days. They stood 3 feet apart, neither moving. You came, Marcus said. You gave me 2 weeks. And, Ruth took a breath, and I spent the first 3 days missing you. The next 4 realizing what you'd built, not just for me, but for hundreds of people. The next 3 seeing the impact, meeting families, understanding the scale. And the last 5 figuring out what I wanted to say. What do you want to say? Ruth stepped closer. You asked me why I helped you that first day. You remember what I said. Because I needed help. That's part of it. But the truth. Ruth's voice shook. I helped you because when I looked at you, I saw someone who'd forgotten how to see himself. Someone who'd built an empire, but lost himself in the process. and I know what that feels like." Marcus didn't speak, just listened. "After my mother died, I forgot who I was. I became just a caretaker, a survivor, someone who showed up and pushed through and forgot she had dreams, forgot she mattered." Ruth's eyes filled. "And then you showed up at 4:30 a.m. with coffee, and you asked about my life, my dreams, what I wanted, and you listened, really listened, like my answers mattered." "They did matter. I know. And that's when I started falling for you. Not when you promised me a house, not when you paid my debt, when you chose yourself, when you walked away from that company and chose life. Because watching you choose yourself reminded me I could choose myself too." Ruth closed the distance between them. "These 2 weeks, I kept asking myself the question, if you took everything away, the house, the scholarship, the job, all of it, would I still want you?" She reached for his hand. "And Marcus, the answer is yes. Because you didn't give me a future. You reminded me I already had one. You just made it possible to reach it." Marcus's breath caught. "I don't love you because you're rich," Ruth continued. "I love you because you're kind. Because you remember everything I say. Because you see people, really see them, when everyone else looks away. Because you saw me. When I was just a housekeeper cleaning your office. When I was nobody. You saw me." Marcus closed the final distance between them, pulled her into his arms. "I've been in love with you since the first 4:30 a.m. conversation," he said against her hair. "When you told me about your mother and you didn't cry. You just smiled talking about what she taught you. And I thought, this woman has lost everything and she's still smiling, still kind, still showing up." He pulled back to look at her face. "You taught me what strength looks like, Ruth, what grace looks like, and I want to spend my life being worthy of you." Ruth reached up, touched his face. "You already are." They kissed in the executive bathroom, where it all started, where Ruth had saved Marcus's life with orange juice and sugar packets, where kindness had bloomed in the space between desperation and hope. When they pulled apart, both were laughing. "This is a weird place for our first kiss," Ruth said. "This is where you saved my life. Seems perfect to me." Marcus took both her hands. "I have one more thing to ask you." Ruth's heart skipped. "What? Will you let me help you move into the house? Properly? Your brother needs furniture for his room, a better desk, maybe a bookshelf. And I'd like to be there. If that's okay." Ruth laughed, relief and joy flooding through her. "Yes, but I'm buying the couch." "Deal." They left Northgate Tower hand in hand as the sun rose over Newark, painting the city gold. Neither of them knew that in 6 months, Marcus would ask a very different question. In front of 300 people. 6 months later, Morrison Village was complete. 47 homes. 47 families. Every single unit occupied. 0 evictions. 0 late payments. The income-based model working exactly as Marcus had designed it. The Morrison Family Wellness Center was fully operational. 847 patients served. Free medical clinic averaging 30 visits per day. Childcare facility with 45 children enrolled. Job training program with 89% placement rate. Ruth had completed her first semester of medical school with a 4.0 GPA. Top 15% of her class. She studied at the kitchen table in the house Marcus built, her brother doing homework across from her, both of them existing in a peace they'd never known. David was thriving. Straight A's. Student council. Talking about college. Talking about future. Using words like when I graduate instead of if. And Ruth and Marcus, they were inseparable. Coffee every morning. Dinner most nights. Sunday walks to Morrison Village, visiting families, checking in, being present. They'd fallen into a rhythm that felt like home. The community celebration was scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Saturday in late September. 300 people gathered in the open space at the center of Morrison Village. Families who lived there. Local press. City officials. Partners who'd helped fund the project. Everyone who'd believed in Marcus Webb's vision of sustainable, community-centered development. Marcus was scheduled to speak at 2:30. Ruth found him backstage, a tent set up behind a makeshift podium, 20 minutes before. "You nervous?" she asked. Marcus turned. He looked pale, terrified. "You've given hundreds of presentations. Not like this one." Ruth frowned. "What do you mean?" Marcus kissed her forehead, pulled her close. "You'll see." Something in his voice made Ruth's stomach flip. "Marcus, trust me," he whispered. "Just trust me." Ruth returned to her seat in the third row, David beside her. She felt uneasy, uncertain, like Marcus was about to do something she wasn't prepared for. "What's wrong?" David asked. "I don't know. Something's different." The ceremony began. Local councilwoman spoke about affordable housing initiatives. City planner talked about Morrison Village as a model for future development. Construction manager thanked the crew. Then Marcus took the podium. He thanked the partners, the city officials, the construction team. Standard speech. Professional. Gracious. Then he paused, looked directly at Ruth. "But I want to talk about why this village exists." The crowd quieted. 10 months ago, I was dying. Marcus's voice was steady but raw. Not dramatically. Not in some hospital with machines beeping. Quietly. Killing myself for a company that didn't care if I lived or died. Working 90-hour weeks. Forgetting to eat. Skipping medication. I'd built an empire and lost myself in the process. Ruth's heart started pounding. And then one morning, I collapsed in an executive bathroom at 4 a.m. diabetic shock. I was minutes from death, and the housekeeper found me. 300 people leaned forward. Her name was Ruth Morrison, 27 years old, working 2 jobs to support her younger brother, living in a studio apartment. She dropped out of medical school to care for her dying mother. She had nothing, but when she found me dying on that bathroom floor, she saved my life anyway. Ruth felt tears start to fall. Marcus was telling their story. To everyone. "She gave me orange juice," Marcus continued. "Sugar packets from the break room. Monitored my breathing. Brought me back. And she didn't have to. She could have called security, protected herself, walked away. But she didn't. She chose kindness." The crowd was silent. Completely silent. For weeks after that, she showed up at 4:30 a.m. with coffee. We talked. She told me about her life, her dreams, what she'd lost. And I realized something. I'd spent 15 years building wealth, and I'd never been as rich as this woman who had nothing. Marcus's voice cracked. I collapsed again 6 weeks later. Stress-induced cardiac event. And Ruth told me something that saved my life a second time. She said, "What's the point of building an empire if you're not here to see it?" Ruth was crying openly now. David grabbed her hand. So I walked away. Resigned. Lost the penthouse, the car, everything. Moved to a modest apartment in Ruth's neighborhood. And I made her a promise. When I recovered, I'd build her a home. I'd help her get back to medical school. Marcus stepped away from the podium. And then I lost her. For 6 months, she was working 3 jobs, drowning in medical debt, losing her apartment. And she never called me. Never asked for help. Because Ruth Morrison is the kind of person who gives everything and asks for nothing. He walked toward Ruth's section. The crowd murmured, confused. Ruth's eyes went wide. "Marcus, what are you?" Marcus knelt in front of her. The crowd gasped. He pulled a ring from his pocket. Simple silver band with a single stone. Not ostentatious. Just beautiful. "Ruth Morrison," Marcus said, voice shaking. 10 months ago, you saved my life. 6 months ago, you saved it again by loving me when I had nothing to offer but a promise. You taught me that kindness isn't a transaction, that people matter more than profit, that the best investment I could ever make was in someone else's future. Ruth couldn't breathe. I promised I'd build you a home when I recovered. I did. But Ruth, I don't want you to just have a house. I want you to have a home with me, a life with me, a future with me. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep next to you every night. I want to build things together, not just villages, but a family, a life, everything. He held up the ring. Will you marry me? Ruth was crying so hard she could barely see. You're proposing in front of 300 people. You saved my life in front of nobody. Seemed fair to declare my love in front of everybody. Ruth laughed through tears. That's the worst logic I've ever heard. Is that a yes? Ruth reached down, cupped his face in her hands. It's a yes. It's been a yes since 4:30 a.m. Marcus slipped the ring on her finger, stood, pulled her into his arms. They kissed. The crowd erupted. Standing ovation. Cheers. Tears. Applause that shook the ground. David jumped up, screaming, "That's my sister. That's my sister." Marcus and Ruth pulled apart, foreheads pressed together, both laughing and crying. "I love you," Marcus whispered. "I love you too. But we're going to talk about your timing later." They returned to the stage together, hand in hand, finished the ceremony as an engaged couple. Every resident of Morrison Village lined up to congratulate them. Local news cameras captured everything. The headline that night, "From housekeeper to doctor, a love story built on promises." 6 months later, they married at Northgate Tower. The ceremony was in the executive suite where they had their 4:30 a.m. conversations, where they talked about dreams and loss and what mattered, where they'd fallen in love over coffee and honesty. 100 guests, family, Morrison Village residents, Ruth's medical school classmates, Marcus's business partners, people whose lives had been touched by what started with orange juice and sugar packets. The decorations were simple, elegant. Photos from their journey lined walls. Ruth finding Marcus, their first coffee, Morrison Village construction, the proposal, their life in pictures. David walked Ruth down the aisle. Both of them were crying before they'd taken 5 steps. David in a suit he'd picked out himself, standing taller than Ruth remembered, growing up too fast. Ruth in a simple white dress, nothing extravagant, nothing she couldn't afford on her own, because that mattered to her. Marcus stood at the altar in a gray suit, tears streaming down his face. When Ruth reached him, David kissed her cheek, whispered, "Mom would be so proud," and stepped back. The officiant, Dr. Chun from Rutgers, who became Ruth's mentor, smiled at them both. "We're gathered here today to witness 2 people who've already proven what marriage is supposed to be. Partnership, sacrifice, seeing each other clearly and choosing each other anyway." Marcus and Ruth had written their own vows. Marcus went first. "Ruth, when I was 42 and dying, you gave me orange juice. When I was lost, you gave me direction. When I was empty, you gave me purpose. I promised to show up for you every day, to choose you every day, to love you even when it's 4:30 a.m. and neither of us has had coffee, to see you the way you saw me, clearly, honestly, with all the grace you deserve." Ruth's turn. "Marcus, you took my worst day, finding you unconscious, and turned it into the best thing that ever happened to me. Not because of what you gave me, but because of who you showed me I could be. You reminded me I was worthy, that my dreams mattered, that I could be more than just a survivor." She paused. "I promised to be your partner, to remind you every day that you were always worthy, even before you were healthy, even before you recovered. You were always enough." They exchanged rings. They kissed. The crowd cheered. Marcus and Ruth walked down the aisle together, hand in hand, grinning like fools married. The reception was at the Morrison Family Wellness Center. The community center transformed with lights, flowers, long tables covered in food. Morrison Village residents performed. Musicians played. Children danced. It felt less like a wedding reception and more like a family reunion. David gave a speech, stood up at the head table, tapped his glass, cleared his throat. I'm not good at speeches, he started, but I'm good at remembering. I remember when my mom got sick. I remember Ruth dropping out of school to take care of us. I remember sleeping on a couch in a studio apartment and Ruth sleeping on the floor so I could have the bed. I remember her working 2 jobs, then 3 jobs, never complaining, never giving up. He looked at Ruth. My sister saved our family, and Marcus saved her. So this isn't just a wedding. This is... His voice broke. This is proof that good people still exist, that promises still matter, that love is real. He raised his glass to the sister who saved our family and the man who saved her. Everyone drank. Later, during the first dance, Marcus and Ruth swayed to music played by Morrison Village residents. Did you ever think we'd end up here? Marcus asked, his cheek against her temple, in a community center, surrounded by people we helped. Ruth smiled. Yeah, actually I did. Really? No, but it sounds good. Marcus laughed. Ruth laughed. They held each other and swayed, and felt like the luckiest people alive. 1 year after the wedding, the numbers told a story. Morrison Village, 47 families housed, 0 evictions, 89% employment rate compared to 43% neighborhood average, 23 children enrolled in college prep programs, community garden producing food for 100 families, Morrison Family Wellness Center, 847 patients served, free medical clinic, 6,200 visits, child care, 45 children daily, job training, 134 participants, 89% placement rate. But numbers didn't capture the human impact. Angela Martinez, 32, single mother of 2. She'd moved into Morrison Village with her kids after 3 years in a homeless shelter, enrolled in the job training program, earned medical assistant certification, now worked at Morrison Wellness Center full-time. Her kids, 7 and 9, attended the after-school program. Safe, federal, thriving. Ms. Ruth gave me what no one else would, Angela said in an interview with NJ Monthly. A chance, not charity. A chance. David Chun, 19, aging out of foster care. Marcus had met with him personally, shared his own story of homelessness, connected him with housing in Morrison Village. David earned his GED, enrolled in community college, studying business. Mr. Webb taught me that your past doesn't define your future, David said. I was homeless at 17. Now I'm studying to become a business owner. That doesn't happen without people like them. Carmen Rodriguez, 45, domestic violence survivor, emergency housing at Morrison Village after escaping her abuser, therapy through the wellness center, job training, graduated, now working in accounting at a Newark firm. Her daughter received a scholarship, full ride to Rutgers. This place saved my life, Carmen said. Literally, I would be dead if not for Morrison Village. Now I'm rebuilding, and my daughter's going to college. The ripple effect extended beyond individual stories. Local level, 12 newer businesses partnered with Morrison Village, hiring 67 residents. Crime in the neighborhood dropped 34% in 1 year. Property values increased 12%, but Morrison Village stayed affordable through the income-based trust. 3 new community gardens started using the Morrison model. Media coverage exploded. NJ Monthly, the CEO who chose people over profit. CNN, from housekeeper to medical student, a promise kept. Ruth delivered a TED Talk titled The Power of Sustained Kindness. 2.3 million views in 3 months. Legislative impact. New Jersey passed the Morrison Act, increased funding for affordable housing tied to integrated community services. Marcus and Ruth testified before the state legislature. The bill required all new housing developments receiving state funding to include wellness centers. Replication. 8 cities contacted Marcus about the Morrison model. Philadelphia launched Sister City Village, 34 homes. Boston, Baltimore, Detroit in planning stages. Harvard Business School published a case study. The Morrison Model, Sustainable Community Development. Ruth completed her first year of medical school in the top 10% of her class. Featured in Rutgers magazine. From cleaning offices to saving lives. She served as part-time director of Morrison Center. Mentored 12 Morrison Village youth interested in healthcare. Marcus transformed web development group completely. 100% affordable housing. No luxury condos. No gentrification projects. Profitable but purpose-driven. His quote in Fast Company. I used to measure success in dollars. Now I measure it in families housed. 1 year after the wedding, on a warm evening in September, Marcus and Ruth walked through Morrison Village hand in hand. Residents sat on porches. Kids played in the street. The community garden overflowed with tomatoes, peppers, herbs. Music drifted from open windows. The smell of cooking, a dozen different cuisines, a dozen different families making dinner. This was what home looked like. I got my anatomy exam back, Ruth said. 97%. That's my doctor. Not yet. Still have 3 years. You'll make it. You always do. Ruth stopped walking, turned to face him. Thank you. For what? For believing in me before I believed in myself. Marcus kissed her forehead. Always. A young girl approached them. Maybe 10 years old, black, shy. Holding her mother's hand. The mother spoke first. Excuse me. Are you Dr. Morrison? Ruth knelt down to the girl's level. Not yet. But soon. I'm Ruth. I'm Sarah. This is my daughter, Maya. Hi, Maya. How do you like your new home? Maya's voice was barely audible. It's nice. I have my own bed. Sarah's eyes filled. We just moved into Unit 23 last week. We were living in our car before this. 3 months. Ruth's heart cracked open. I'm so glad you're here. Maya wanted to give you something, Sarah said. Maya held out a drawing. Crayon picture of a house with 2 stick figures labeled Ruth and Marcus. This is you, Maya said quietly. You gave us a home. Ruth took the drawing, tears blurring her vision. Thank you, Maya. This is beautiful. She looked at the little girl, this child who'd been sleeping in a car a week ago, who now had her own bed, her own room, her own chance. Maya, can I tell you something? Maya nodded. A long time ago, when I was not much older than you, I helped someone who needed help. And you know what he did? What? He helped me back. And then we helped other people. And now we're all helping each other. Ruth looked at Sarah. That's what this village is. People helping people. And the cycle never ends. Marcus pulled something from his pocket. A small bracelet, simple, woven, red and silver. He knelt beside Ruth, held it out to Maya. This is for you. To remind you that someone believes in you. Maya's eyes went wide. Really? For me? For you? And when you grow up and help someone else, you can give them something too. Something to remember. And the cycle keeps going. Maya threw her arms around Marcus, then Ruth. Squeezed tight. Sarah wiped her eyes. Thank you. Both of you. For everything. Sarah and Maya walked back to their unit. Maya clutched the bracelet, kept looking back, waving. Ruth waved until they disappeared inside. Marcus put his arm around her. You okay? Did you make those? Ruth asked. The bracelets. I've been making them for a year. Gave one to every family that moved in. Why didn't you tell me? Because you taught me that kindness doesn't need an announcement. It just needs to happen. Ruth leaned into him. Felt the weight of everything they'd built. Felt the rightness of it. I have something to tell you, she said. Marcus pulled back, concerned. What? Ruth smiled through tears. I'm pregnant. Marcus froze. We're having a baby. Marcus lifted Ruth off her feet, spinning her, both of them laughing and crying. He set her down gently, hands on her face. When? 7 months. I found out yesterday. And you waited until now to tell me? I wanted it to be perfect. And this. Ruth gestured to Morrison Village, to the homes, to the families, to the life they'd built. This is perfect. Marcus's hand moved to her stomach. Still flat, but life growing there. Their future. What do we name her? He asked. Her. I have a feeling. Ruth thought about everything. About orange juice and sugar packets. About promises kept. About 47 families and counting. About cycles that never end. Hope, she said. We name her Hope. Hope Morrison Webb. Because that's what this is. What we built. Hope. They stood in the center of Morrison Village as evening fell. 47 homes around them. Lights coming on one by one. Children playing. Families cooking dinner. Community alive and thriving. The camera pulled back slowly, taking in the whole scene. Marcus and Ruth holding each other. Ruth's hand on her stomach. Their daughter growing inside her. Their life spreading out around them in concentric circles of impact. One act of kindness. 10 months of transformation. 47 families. Hundreds of lives changed. And still growing. Morrison Village, 47 families. 100% occupancy. 0 evictions in 3 years. Morrison Family Wellness Center. 12,000 patients served. 847 program participants. 91% job placement rate. 156 children in educational programs. 8 medical school graduates connected to the community. The Morrison model adopted by 12 cities across the United States. Philadelphia Sister City Village, 34 homes. Boston Hope Commons, 52 homes. Detroit Morrison Heights, 41 homes. Baltimore Unity Square, 38 homes. Maps showing expansion across the country. Red pins multiplying. Hope spreading. The Morrison Act, New Jersey state law, funded 847 affordable housing units with integrated community services. Marcus and Ruth's testimony helped pass similar legislation in 4 other states. Dr. Ruth Morrison Webb graduated from Rutgers Medical School, top 5% of her class, now completing residency in family medicine. Part-time medical director of Morrison Family Wellness Center. Webb Development Group built 423 affordable housing units across New Jersey, created 1,247 jobs in underserved communities, maintained 100% focus on community-centered development. Marcus interviewed in Forbes. Profit isn't the mission. People are the mission. Profit is just what makes it sustainable. If you're watching this and you're struggling right now, if you're working 3 jobs, if you're drowning in debt, if you're sleeping on someone's couch wondering if it will ever get better, please don't give up. Someone out there sees you. Your Marcus is coming. Your Ruth is coming. Hold on. And if you're watching this and you have something to give, even if it's small, even if you think it won't matter, give it. A cup of orange juice saved my life. A 4:30 a.m. conversation changed my future. A promise kept transformed a community. You never know whose life you'll change. This isn't a fairy tale about getting rich. It's about seeing people when everyone else looks away. It's about small acts sustained over time. It's about remembering that kindness isn't a transaction. It's an investment in a future you might never see. But that future is real.